2023 is definitely a good year for gaming, at least for the products and game releases. It's definitely not a good year for game companies facing layoffs and all the hardworking developers who slaved away while they get, crunched out and stuff, burnout, overworking, all this other crazy stuff going on. It's insane, honestly. So this list is made to show appreciation for the hard work game developers have done through the bad times and sometimes some of the good light that came out of it. This is my personal top 10 games for 2023 that I've played. You can see the Kakuchopurei list on our website. That's a group effort. This particular list, this video I'm doing, it's similar, but the top 10 orders have changed based on the games I've actually touched and played and reviewed and played again during the December period where everyone's all sort of taking a break and coaxing and whatnot. So some honorable mentions. Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Raised His Name. Great game. You reuse all the assets from past Like a Dragon titles. I thought that some of the quests can get a bit repetitive, but yeah, the ending brings all the feels, especially for those who have played the series since 2000, the early 2000s when the PlayStation 2 was at its prime. Like from Yakuza all the way to Like a Dragon. Sorry, Yakuza Like a Dragon. Jeez, I'm getting these titles all mixed up. Final Fantasy 16. I loved it a lot. Not enough to break into my top 10, but nonetheless, it's got really good, memorable set pieces and awesome kick-ass kaiju moments. I like the battle system, especially when it's in full force in the tougher challenges, in the arcade mode, in Final Fantasy mode, in when you touch a stone, you get to play the harder versions of the levels. Really good stuff. I like all the kits I use. I like using Shiva as part of my Clive's icon power-ups. And, you get to mix and match 3 of them, in one go and, make the best possible character you want out of Clive and all of his skill sets and tools. Pizza Tower! Yeah, that's definitely one of the better indie titles. I remember the art style, the music, especially when it's pizza time. I like the controls, I like the movement, the flexibility, the off-kilter humor, and even parts of the soundtrack here and there, yeah. Star Ocean, the second story arc. That's how you do a remake. I did not play I did not play Dead Space. I did not play Resident Evil 4, the remake. I felt that it's a bit too samey. I mean, yes, I heard some good things about Dead Space. That's a really good remake. But personally, I feel Star Ocean, the second story arc, isn't my honorable mentions because of the work Gem Drops has done. Really put in the time and effort to make it feel very new, yet also very old school for those who played the 1999 original. Like some new changes here and there while still keeping what made the game great, which is the skill sets, the passive stuff, the private actions, the fact that you can actually make counterfeit money to level up and do all sorts of crazy things here and there. Oh, and speaking of Dead Cells, Return to Castlevania, the DLC that came out this year. Dead Cells Return to Castlevania is a really, really awesome tribute to Dead Cells, what makes it a roguelite Metroidvania, and the new levels and everything featured is all really, really epic, really challenging, but at the same time it gives you that whole retro vibe feel. Really love the bosses and really love the music remixes where they took the Dead Cells music style and just made it, do the remixes of the old Castlevania themes like Tragic Prince and Dracula's Castle and made it feel nice and fresh and new. And also features a new mode where you get to play as Richter Belmont. I really like how they incorporated the characters in this DLC. The animation work, the boss fights, like I said, really good stuff. And also still challenging, still retains that whole Dead Cells roguelike unlocking of things and opening up paths because you need to put in the effort to unlock the Castlevania stages, which is its own reward. And in my last part of the honorable mentions, we got Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Really loved the fact that you got 2 different storylines, although I felt that the Peter Parker side takes more center stage than Miles Morales. But at the same time, I really like Miles Morales' power-ups and skill set. Whereas Peter Parker, when he had the Venom suit and everything, that was good. And speaking of which, yeah, the Venom portion where you play as the actual violent Venom, I really hope they make a spin-off out of it, like a standalone title, probably called Lethal Protector. And yeah, props to Insomniac for creating a really awesome instant fast travel bit where, it just zooms into the city. I never get tired of that. And now, on to my top 10. Honkai Star Rail is a free-to-play RPG, which is tailored like a Persona-style game with its turn-based tactical action, but it puts a sci-fi spin onto it. I really like the locations, I like the artwork, I like the anime style. The storylines as well, they're really fun to explore. The battles are challenging. You got a bit of like really challenging boss fights with really awesome set pieces and themes coming in, especially when the music hits a crescendo when you're dealing with the boss's final or second phase. Lots of fun updates that come out, for the game after its first 1.0 release with, I guess 1.6, right? Yeah, 1.6 is now the current update featuring new storylines, new characters to use if you can gacha them. All the extra side activity like the museum side quests, yeah, those actually add a bit more flavor and fun. Heck, there's even a Pokemon style battle thing going on in one of the game's major side updates. I'd say Honkai Star Rail would be the best free game you can play at this point in time, available on your PC and on your mobile phones and on the PlayStation 5. There's no shortage of RPGs in this particular year, so glad to see that Hoyoverse is doing a great job giving what people wanted, a free-to-play turn-based anime-style RPG. I know Blizzard has been getting a lot of shit as of late, but I do feel Diablo 4 deserves some mentioning, especially since it's 9th place of my personal top 10 games. The action RPG bits really land. I really like how it solidly plays. I like the classes. The single-player storyline is actually not too bad, considering that, yeah, it touches upon like whether the Horadrim is still relevant and whether Lilith's action and motives are worth, justifying and whatnot. It's a really good character exploration. And yeah, especially the fact that the game is getting seasons. Season 1 isn't exactly the best, but I do feel Season 2 is on the right path for this game. With the new updates, quality of life changes, the speed in which you upgrade and power up and level up characters to Paragon levels, and the endgame content, all really good stuff all around. I really like how the game clicks. I'm still playing it to this day because of Season 2. I just hope that it's given like at least 10 years to be fleshed out just like Diablo 3. Overall, this action RPG has legs. Although it has competition in the form of the upcoming Path of Exile 2, so Blizzard will definitely have to be on top of their game to make sure that Diablo 4 sticks with all the different seasons that are upcoming, as well as the upcoming expansion pack, Vessel of Hatred. So good job with the launch for Diablo 4. Really like how it's progressed, despite some stumbling blocks. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be playing this game for months and hopefully years to come. Cyberpunk 2077 had a pretty rocky launch, but it's been getting a lot of love as of late because of Cyberpunk Edgerunners, the pretty awesome Trigger Studio animated miniseries, and also with this year's Phantom Liberty. Good god, I actually got the feels the first time I saw one of the main characters pop up, the one who's been talking to you as you start this DLC, in the new area called Dogtown. The two characters, Agent Reed and Songbird, are incredibly well-written characters who got their own pains, their own stakes, and their own motives in making the storyline of Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty go on and on. It's a really meaty expansion pack with its own side quest line and the main quest, which diverges to do different endings depending on who you decide to side with. And the new 2.0 update for the base game actually warrants a second or third playthrough just because of how fresh everything feels, from the reworked skills mechanic to the fighting and melee and everything else. It just feels like a brand new game. This was a game that should have come out during Cyberpunk's launch, but what's done is done. CD Projekt deserves a round of applause for making this expansion pack and the 2.0 update stick the landing. And of course, Keanu Reeves' Johnny Silverhand is still funny in this one. Blasphemous 2 is the vastly improved sequel to the first Blasphemous. It's a search-action Metroidvania title. I'm not sure what everybody's stance is with Metroidvanias right now because there's so many of them, but this one definitely sticks out because of how well designed the map is, how challenging and fun the levels are when you get the new power-ups. The new weapons, which comes with their own traversal skills and power-ups, do help make the playthrough and the playstyles and all the action all the more exciting and very visceral and very different from what you've played as of late. And of course, the boss fights need mentioning because they're very tense, they're very challenging. I really like the one fight where you're fighting on a literal thread, and the music is just basically like a clock ticking behind the background, and it gets faster the longer you're in the fight. And as soon as the boss's level is like down to a third, the music just goes really, really fast. It's a very, very tense moment. And of course, you can't talk about Blasphemous 2 without talking about the art style, which is very haunting, memorable. I mean, it's less grotesque than the first game, but at the same time, part 2 has its own weird oddities and art style. Like, it's not being done out of shock value. It's done because they base off the game off of the Spanish paintings in the cathedrals and churches back in Spain. So it's very memorable, hauntingly memorable. Like what you see in Blasphemous 2 will not leave your mind. It's just very alluring, very mesmerizing. But also it comes with a very great action gameplay with it. So Blasphemous 2 is definitely this year's most memorable and best Metroidvania all around. This one is a bit of a hard sell because it's a 2D pixel game that's styled like a Game Boy Color kind of title, and the puzzles, which basically you create blocks, you make them disappear, and you gotta move through tile by tile, comes with the most like 200 plus levels of really tough puzzles. It's challenging and very oblique with its storytelling, but I will tell you it's worth persevering to see its conclusion. If you played the developer's past game Zero Ranger, you know there are a lot of surprises in that 2D shoot 'em up. So you can expect a lot of like rabbit hole type storylines in Void Stranger as you dig deeper, as soon as you get like the first true ending of the game. And then turns out, yes, you gotta play it on a harder mode with new rearranged levels and everything. And there's actually a lot of like narrative things going on, just as well as a lot of secrets that will make your playthroughs slightly easier. It's really hard for me to, again, recommend this title, but if you are very patient and if you love challenging puzzles that make you feel dumb, but then make you feel smarter when you solve them, I'd say go for it. Jump into this void. It is worth it. So if you're into cryptic gaming, like in that harkens back to the 90s or like the early 80s style of gameplay and puzzle solving, go for Void Stranger. Plus, it's really cheap on Steam. Alright, the fifth spot on my list is A Space for the Unbound. Indonesian made, created by Mojiken Studio, set in rural 90s Indonesia. It's actually an adventure game, you know, like the point and click style adventure game where you walk around figuring out like you and your girlfriend Raya decide to, explore the town and get your summer list checklist, crossed out. And it turns out that yes, it's going through a supernatural route. The game's got great narrative, puzzles, and mini games tying into the country's culture, the 90s type Indonesia, the rural bits here and there, and you got topics being explored like abuse, depression, and bullying. I'm not going to spoil much because I really suggest you jump into this adventure game. Just know that you're going into 2D pixel art, a lot of video game old school references, and a lot of like 90s culture like popping in like through the lens of Indonesia. And it's really a good love letter to the country, but also a great story about those topics I mentioned, focused on the main character and his girlfriend Raya. So yeah, if you want something very heartfelt, this is one space you gotta jump into. Hi-Fi Rush surprised a lot of people, myself including, because of its Saturday morning cartoon vibe and its 2000s action game style, which, again, the character action bits are fine and all, but it's the music and the rhythm-based mechanic where you gotta basically hit enemies to the beat of the music that's playing in the background so you can deal more damage, get attacks coming in and killing enemies really fast, and of course scoring a high score and everything. This is like a very surprise hit gem when it was announced and when it was released during its announcement. I believe it's in January. So I jumped straight into it and was really surprised at how packed this 8-hour game is. And plus, with the new updates that came out with the roguelite mode, yeah, so that's extra 5 hours or so. So good old character action bits reminds me of Beautiful Joe and God Hand to an extent, coupled with rhythm games, It's a really nice mix. It's just really well polished and well done, and it's just really fun to explore the antics of Chai and his robot cat 808. Sea of Stars is what happens when developers decide to make their own version of Chrono Trigger, and with the lovely art style and the music, yes, it's really worth going into. The story is a bit predictable, but I really like the heartfelt notion that the characters exude, like from Gar to the many others as well, like even the side characters like the pirates. Yeah, everything about it just screams like in the night, like it's from the 90s, except made for this year with like 25 hours of like the normal and also of course the special playthrough where you gotta find the best ending. It's got even a great combat system, uses the whole like input based system, turn based, got a lot of nice moves that you need to use, got nice little team up attacks, and the boss fights are very challenging and very puzzle driven to some sense. So I like how the whole story goes from one end to the other, and then you go to another part of the world and everything. I like the places this game takes you, as well as the whole nostalgia-inducing bits that it has. Like, my favorite bits involve fighting a bunch of robots. Yes, there are robots in this game. And also, like, there are little throwbacks to this other game that the developer made called The Messenger. So if you really want a really nice old-school treat from 2023 that's very packed and very meaningful, yeah, Sea of Stars will tug your heartstrings. Sea of Stars will tug your heartstrings. So, funny story, I only jumped into Baldur's Gate 3 not during its launch in September, but like on December 2023 when I actually had a lot of free time to mess around with different games here and there and do some Game of the Year catch up. And holy crap, I just realized I spent like 80, 90 plus hours just playing through like all my 3 playthroughs of Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 is a quintessential CRPG set in the fantasy world of Dungeons and Dragons in the land of Faerun, Baldur's Gate. So you got all these familiar locations if you played Dungeons and Dragons, the module and everything. So environments and everything, you know, like with the whole free action system and, you know, using your environments to your advantage, that's what elevates the combat in this game. That's what elevates the turn-based system. You know, you're not just exploiting the system, but also using everything to your advantage, paying attention to the surroundings. And the story itself, the character quests are really interesting. They're very in-depth, make you think about the characters you're with, especially Shadowheart and Astarion. It's a worthy sequel to the Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, which I spent like maybe the same amount of hours in with different playthroughs here and there. Just wanted to find out the good and the evil side and the stuff in between. Baldur's Gate 3 just does that, but with the Larian's Divinity engine. And while I do question some of the mechanics here and there, and the pathfinding especially, and the third act still being a little bit buggy, I do feel that the additions, especially in patch 5, do make the game more complete. I can see why a lot of people have elected this as their game of the year. I really enjoyed my time with Baldur's Gate 3 with its fleshed out characters, its many options, like whether you want like this particular ending, a good playthrough, or an in-between playthrough, like the morally ambiguous playthrough, or the flat-out evil playthrough. It gives you so many options. The combat system is really open, flexible, and everything. And I just had a grand old time just playing through an adventure game that just feels really, again, epic. It should come to a shock to my friends that, yeah, my top game, my game of the year is Street Fighter 6. Again, this is probably the game that matches in terms of hours and whatnot with my Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough. It's, yeah, the best 2D fighting game this year and arguably this generation because of its massive improvements. It's really nice rethought fighting style and the mechanics. I really like the fact that, yes, the drive gauge and the super meter are made separate so that you can actually be very flexible with your defensive and offensive options. You've got really awesome quality of life stuff. You got a really great roster featuring old characters and new characters like JP, Manon, and Lily. My favorite being Manon, of course, with her ballerina judo medal system and fighting style. Really great to watch, especially when I successfully land a critical art. Really great roster. And of course, the single player mode not only teaches you how to play fighting games with the mechanics and everything, but also lets you create your own custom character who can do fireballs and spinning pile drivers. You get to mix and match your moves and everything. Really great custom character modes and whatnot. It's, again, the RPG mode is very lengthy, got a typical story, but again, seeing all the different Street Fighter characters teaching you all the moves is just funny. So all in all, I've had so many online matches. They're all great. No lag, no nothing, except when I'm playing in the US from Malaysia, but that's to be expected. All in all, this is the quintessential fighting game of this generation, this year. It's, again, I'm glad that this didn't turn out to be another Street Fighter V in 2016, where it took its time to be the best game. Like Street Fighter 6 ended up being great off the cuff. So hopefully the next few expansions coming out, we know a Super Street Fighter 6 is coming, come on. Like with the DLCs and the Super version and maybe the Champion version coming up in the next few years, I do hope that this game gets some legs. And I mean, with the Capcom Cup happening, yeah, of course, it's still gonna be like the fighting game for people to get to. And yes, this is my game of the year. Really stand by it. Really good stuff. Good job, Capcom. And guys and gals, thank you so much for tuning in. Thanks again for checking out our website, checking out our YouTube page. If you like this video and more videos like these, do subscribe to our channel and hit that notification icon. We post new content every week. Have a great 2024, everybody, and keep on gaming.